Okay, we're going.
Okay.
We have, what do we have here? Pumpkin pie?
Yeah.
Dunkin' pumpkin pie?
Dunkin' pumpkin pie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, let's find out.
This is my go-to, so it's kind of hard to... I feel like I've been drinking it so much that I've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
I'd say this is a 9, because this is my go-to.
A 9?
A 9.
Mm. I do have to preface and say I'm a latte person, so like it's not bad. You can definitely taste the pumpkin in it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
What would you rate it? Out of 10.
Like a 6. I don't know. I think I like coffees that like you can taste the flavor but equally taste like the bean. I don't know. Like this is like I can taste tiny hint flavor and then like bean juice.
You want it to actually taste like coffee?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You like the bean juice?
I do. So it's like it's got a lot of bean juice in it, but it's like
dude, it sounds so gross whenever you call it bean juice.
I don't know.
Like
it's like it just kind of tastes burnt. I don't know.
Well, that could be your coffee maker, but no, I like it. This is my go-to. What do you know? Like, what do you normally go for? If you're at Starbucks, what do you get?
Ew. That's the only thing that is near my clinic, so.
Don't act like you don't like Starbucks.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I went to a coffee shop yesterday, like a local St. Louis like coffee shop. Speakeasy Cafe. It was really good. But it like she uses like a real espresso machine with like real beans and stuff like that. Like it had a very like rich coffee flavor, but like the cream in the latte like balanced it out though. Like it was a really good, like you obviously taste like the coffee and like the hints of flavor in it with like the cream.
So you just had a standard latte and you're like, that's it?
No, like some lattes,
what else was in it?
It is technically a standard latte, but like the ones from Starbucks, like even the like general ones, like I go to another local coffee shop in Edwardsville and like you can just tell that like the beans are a little burnt or like it's a little too watery and then you get too much cream. You just feel like you're drinking cream with like a hint of coffee. Like I don't like that.
Yeah, I have heard a lot of people say that all Starbucks coffee tastes burnt. They just keep like, fuck it, we just keep burning it.
Yeah, because like I mean it's burnt, but it's not to where it's like intolerable, and they do a good job of balancing out like the cream and the coffee though. So it like I don't know, it's like you get a good flavor with the coffee, like even though the coffee is a little bit maybe over roasted. It's like it's really not bad. I don't know. But most chain Starbucks like are like people are just rushing to get it done, but like the Starbucks roasteries, like I went to one in Chicago, and
a roastery.
So it's like it's like an actual Starbucks like restaurant type of thing, and like they get their beans from like all over the world wherever their coffee is coming from, and like they roast it in house. Like they make the coffee like fully in house. It's not just like sent to the shop and stuff like that. Like it's not just sent to a chain and things like that. Like they make all their stuff like in house. It was like 4 stories, so it was really really cool. But that
all dedicated to making coffee.
They had like some food and stuff like that they like make there, but
and they made it right.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was like the best Starbucks I have ever had.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I think people at chains just
don't know how to make it.
They've got like
everyone's acting like a barista.
Dude, they've got like 40 white moms staring at them and yelling at them to get their orders done. So
you know, I'd probably burn it too if I were them.
They're stressed out. Like I get it. So.
What topic you want to cover first?
Well, we can start with a little bit of comparison between my job and yours.
Okay.
So, one specific thing. Have you heard of DEI? I think we might have talked about it before.
You told me a second ago what it stood for, and I already forgot.
Okay. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like going to grad school to be a speech language pathologist. Like it's a pretty big topic for us. Like we have to.
What? Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does that mean to you?
In a general sense, DEI is like diversity is getting a diverse group of people into an environment, into a setting. Like that's the definition of diversity, is just like having multiple cultures, races, gender identities, sexual identities, like in one setting. And then equity is...
Yeah, what is equity?
Yeah, so my favorite example of what equity is, so if you think of equality, like if you have someone who, if you like have a fence and people are trying to see over this fence to watch a baseball game, okay? And you have a dude that's like 3 years old. He's, all of like 2-3 feet, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you have like a 4th grader who's like 4 foot something. And you have a high schooler that's like 5'10", okay? Mm-hmm. Equality is when you give each of them the same sized stepping stool. Like you give each of them a 2-foot step stool and say this fence is like 7 feet tall. So the like 3-year-old is still not gonna be able to see over the fence, but like you gave him something. So like he gets a little bit of a leg up, but it doesn't get him over the fence. And then like the 4th grader, he might kind of be able to see over like a little, like he can get there. Like he might, if you grab the top of the fence, he could like kind of lift and stuff out. But like that, like, because it's just a 2-foot step stool. But then the high schooler who's like 5'10", you give him the 2-foot step stool, he's over that fence and he's chilling. So that's like what equality looks like. And equity is when you have like the same people, but for the 3-year-old, you give them like a 4-foot step stool so they can see over that fence. For the 4th grader who's like 4 something, you give them like a 3-foot step stool so they can see over that fence. And then for the dude that's 5'10", you give him like a 1.5 foot step stool so they can see over the fence. It's like addressing every person based on what they specifically need, not just handing everyone the same resource and then be like, okay, have fun, good luck.
So, in summary, it's equal outcome?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like it's help tailored to an individualized person. It's individualized help so that people can meet the same standard, but some people need more help than others. Mm-hmm. So, and then inclusion is, like a good example of inclusion would be, I think like, what's it called? I think equality is being like, it's described as being like invited to a dance party. Like, people are like, hey, come to the party. Like, let's all hang out. Right. But then inclusion is like someone walking up to you at the party, being like, hey, come dance with me. Like, let's go do it together. It's like people actually taking the diversity that's in the room and like including them into something so that everybody's bonding, everybody's learning, everybody's like having the chance to have a shared experience. So
the inclusion just sounds like just more diversity, like just participating with more diverse.
It's getting the diversity into the room, giving them the equity to be there and like to fully participate, and then including them in everything that you're doing. Because like diversity would be like, okay, we have a diverse group of people at this dance party, right? Awesome, great. And then equity would be, well, this person can't afford a nice dress. Like, we can offer them one. We can offer to rent them one. We can offer to purchase one for them, like things like that. But then another person who has enough money for a dress, like they don't get any help because they're able to provide for themselves. But they're the people who like need a nice tux but don't have the money for it.
So like, I understand what DEI is, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I already have a good idea of where this is going. Like, in your field, it really makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But in my field, I'm not.
Yeah, and that's
it would be a little different.
Yeah.
And like also just as a whole, like, yes, you should help people that are in, like, who need help. It's I think it's the whole point of diversity, equity, and inclusions. People who don't have the capability to meet the standard that everyone else is meeting, it's giving them that leg up so they can run the race.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But there's also the outcome. Like, there's also, let's take bowling for an example. Like, if you're doing competitive bowling, you get like a handicap if you aren't good enough. So like you get a score bumped up. Where if someone bowls perfect 300s every time, they don't have a handicap because they are the high, like they're the best you can get. So everyone else gets a leg up so that they can compete with the best. And so that's supposed to help like offset and make it more less of a spread.
Right.
Otherwise, the person with the 300 would win every time. So, like, in a competitive sense, like, yes, that's good. But in a sense of, well, that dude has worked for 10 years to bowl perfect 300s. Why isn't he just in a better league?
Yeah.
So it's all. I could also see it being frustrated. Like, if you were that person who has worked their ass off to bowl 300s every time and reach that level of consistency, but you lose to someone who bowled a 180 because they had a really good handicap. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. Like, it can feel unfair sometimes because this person who has worked really hard doesn't get that leg up in the race, but this other person does. So they have like equal odds, even though someone might not be as skilled, as talented as the other one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it just like tailoring it to we should always do this or we should always do this is never the case. Like, you kind of have to pick and choose on when diversity, equity, and inclusion would be appropriate, I feel like.
And that's why it's important for speech pathologists specifically, because one of the other components to this is most of the time, not all of the time, but DEI is aimed to help people who are at a disadvantage because they didn't do anything. Like, if you're like the bowling example, like that guy worked his ass off for 10 years to be able to do a 300 bowl score. Like, that's really impressive. He should be in a high league because he worked really hard to get there. But it's kind of like if you took another guy who is able to bowl a 300 because he's worked so hard in his life to bowl that 300, but he's not allowed into that guy's league because he's black or because he has low socioeconomic status, so he can't afford the shoes to get into that league, so he's not allowed to compete. Like, it's not DEI is not meant to give people legs up just like for the fun of it. It's like there was, like you said, you had an example of running a race, right? Like giving everyone equal stuff so they can run the race. Like, there's a YouTube video that's really good, and it's like the $100 race or something like that. And this sociology teacher, some teacher, the teacher in the video. I don't know if these are college kids. They looked older, but they are in a field, and the teacher's like, okay, line up like on this starting line, and it's all different types of kids, like kind of same age though. And he's like, okay, we're gonna run a race, and whoever can get to me first, like, gets $100 bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone's lined up on this line, okay, and the teacher says, okay, but before we start, like, everybody who has parents that are still married gets to take 2 steps forward. So, like, a lot of the kids, like, took 2 steps forward. And then it's, okay, anyone who never had to help their mom with the bills gets to take 2 steps forward. And people start taking steps forward. And it starts to become this, like, there's people left at the back, and there's a good amount of people in the middle, and there's all these people in the front, like, way ahead of everybody else. And, he keeps saying different things, like, to get people to take steps forward. Like, if you've ever, I don't know, it's, like, there's stuff about the color of their skin. It was stuff about, like, if you never felt like you fit in. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's, like, different stuff. But it was never anything that these kids could control, or that these people could control. And he kind of made that point at the end. It's like, I want everyone at the front of the line to turn around and, like, see where everybody's at. He's like, you guys are not in the position you are in because of anything that you did. It's not like they haven't worked hard. It's not like the kids at the back of the line haven't worked their butts off to get A's in school and, like, scholarships to college and stuff like that. But just because of their situation in life, they're at the back of that line. And so when the guy said go, like, to running at the $100 bill, most of those people did not run, because this is like a whole football field. So they're like, I'm never going to catch up to the dude that's in front. Like, why would I even try, type of thing. The people, or they would work their asses off to freaking sprint to the front of that line, like, to try and beat the people at the top. But the DEI is important because in my field, it's my governing body for speech language pathologists is run through an organization called ASHA, and they took, like, a survey, and it was like 95% of the people who work in my field are white women, and that's just, like, a fact. And it's not that that's a bad thing, but when you have multiple perspectives in a workplace, it automatically increases it increases, like, collaboration, it increases, like, overall productivity. Like, there's a lot of benefits to it because you have all those perspectives in your workplace to, like, have conversations with, to get different perspectives. So, like, ASHA and speech language pathology field is really pushing it, like, trying to get more diverse people, like, starting with that first step of DEI, like, getting more diverse people into the field to increase, like, the productivity, to increase the collaboration, to increase, like, new ideas.
And I don't think it's as simple as just chopping it up to, like, from different ethnic backgrounds. Like,
no, it's not.
I think so. I just think it's having different perspectives.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where that's kind of more broad sense than just having, like, different cultures.
Yeah.
So, like, having different perspectives within a workplace would obviously give you a broader sense of the problem, and, like, looking at it from a separate angle. Every perspective is a different angle.
How does engineering do that? Do you guys do that? Like, do you rely on each other for different perspectives? Like, how important is, like, it doesn't have to be DEI, but how important is, like, the diversity you have in your workplace to give you, like...
See, just whenever I think of diversity, I think of different, like, ethnic backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And that's not how I don't think it should be. I think it should be diversity as in different perspectives. So I'm going to go with, like, so that we're all talking the same language, that being my definition of different.
Okay.
Like, diversity is just separate perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And in an engineering realm, it's incredibly useful because someone can spot a problem that you hadn't spotted because they're looking at it from a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you could be thinking, how is this piece going to move? Where someone else can be thinking, is this going to overheat? And, pieces may swell while it heats up, causing it to not move. But you weren't thinking that. You're thinking, how is this going to move? Where someone else is like, well, it's not going to move because it's too hot.
Yeah. So,
from a DEI perspective, it's incredibly useful.
Yeah. So your guys' version is more of like experience.
We don't talk about DEI in engineering.
That's also the other thing. It's like I don't think you had no idea what I was talking about.
I'm kind of speaking for. I feel like I'm speaking for engineers, but we don't like. That's not. We don't need DEI. Like we already know. Like the more perspective you can get on things, the better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like. I think from your side, it's underprivileged people needing help to get where they need so that they can even compete.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's the interesting thing between like the two fields is like you guys like I'm not gonna stereotype engineers. This is what I've observed from having several friends being engineers, like visiting a lot of different places with heavy engineer presence is like you guys are very like cut and dry, like methodical, like okay, we have to get this done, and like whatever makes the most sense, like straight up is like what we're doing type of thing, and it's like we're gonna get it done, we have to build this is our deadline, like we're doing this, like A, B, and C type of thing. There's not a lot of like fluff in it, I guess, which like isn't a bad thing, but it's very practical thinking, and it's like you guys you guys are dealing with like materials that you're manipulating. They're just like objects that you're manipulating. So you guys have the ability to like be really cut and dry and like no BS, like just doing it.
Okay.
Type of thing. But like for SLPs, like our job is to manipulate like people. Like that's what we handle. And that is not cut and dry like whatsoever. And I also feel like engineers have a predominantly male presence. And so you guys are like, I don't know. It's very like...
I don't think most people know what a speech language pathologist is.
No, I don't think people know what speech language pathologist is. I can explain that for a second to people.
Can I give my, like, how I see speech language pathology and then you
I would love to hear. Yeah. Go ahead. Go for it.
You correct people's speeches. Make them be able to show them how to communicate, and if they have like communication deficiencies, how to cope with those deficiencies so that they can speak more clearly.
It's actually pretty accurate.
Thanks.
Nice. You have been paying attention.
Every now and again.
You know, every once in a while. Mm-hmm. No, that's actually pretty clear. It's actually pretty good.
What am I missing?
I'd say the only other part you're missing is like just helping people to communicate, like period too, because it is about speech. Like at end goal, we would love for all of our clients to be able to speak and speak intelligibly. And when I say speak intelligibly, I mean like intelligibility is how well you're able to be understood by an unfamiliar listener. So when I go to the grocery store and I talk to someone, I have intelligible speech. Like most of the time, whoever I'm talking to, if they speak mainstream American English, would be able to understand what I'm saying. Or even if they don't, it's intelligible speech. But someone who stutters, someone who has a speech impediment, they're not as intelligible because their speech is not as easily understood.
And it really...
So...
It's hard, like... You don't realize how much that matters. Whenever you go to an interview and you speak clearly versus someone who sounds very unsure of themselves because they stutter, you come off more confident whenever you can speak clearly and communicate clearly. And the most understood, the most known tends to get picked.
Because we also have a like ideation in America too that like if you have perfect speech, you're smart, you're competent, like you're good at your job type of thing. So
And it also like helps build trust whenever someone looks you in the eye and is able to like, one, be confident in themselves, and then two, communicate what their capabilities are.
Yeah, to have those proper social skills.
Yeah, so I feel like there is a direct link with like your capability to speak and your social skills.
Yeah, and that is part of like my job. Like speech pathology, speech and language pathology is split up into like 3 really important areas. There's like the form area, which is your grammar when you talk, like your words are built from sounds, like how do you put your words together, how do you put your sentences together, and does that make sense? And then you get into like the meaning part, like which is your use, like no, it's your content part, like how do you use those words and those sentences to form content, like when you say a sentence, does it make sense for what you're trying, for the message you're trying to convey? Because if we're sitting here talking and I'm trying to talk about speech language pathology, but then all of a sudden I start talking about a purple alien, it's like, what is she trying to say? Like, this doesn't make sense. So, like, attaching those words to meaning is another really important part. And, like, I don't know, like, that's really hard for stroke patients. It's really hard for kids with, like, expressive and receptive language disorders and stuff like that. And then you get into the use part, like the social piece of, like, okay, we have our words and our sentences, they're formed correctly. You have it associated with the right meaning, like, good, awesome. Now, how do you use that in a social setting? So, like, for people with autism, for people who have, like, delayed language abilities, that's, like, the hardest part for some of those groups is, okay, well, I know my words, and I know how to form them, and I know how to say them, and I know what they mean, but I don't understand these social rules. Like, because in society, like, no one sits down and tells you, like, hey, you can't do, like, you can't say X, Y, and Z in public. Like, sometimes if you're, like, if you do something wrong, your parents will correct you, obviously. But most social rules are not talked about.
It's kind of left for you to figure out.
Right.
And so someone who isn't really looking for those social phenomenon, like no one spells out to you. Most of the time.
Yeah.
People don't spell out to you like, hey, this is how you should interact with someone.
Right. Yeah. So people who have, like, actual issues, like being able to perceive that, you know, it's hard for them to get a job. It's hard for them to walk through the grocery store and have a conversation with someone. Like, it makes you feel very isolated. So. Yeah,
it seems like hard skills are built on the soft skills.
Yeah. Yep. And they have to go hand in hand too to continue to build on each other. Because if you're missing one part of that 3 circle, like, kind of, it's hard. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to interact with other humans, and humans need that. Like, we're built on socializing. Like, that is an essential part of being a human, and part of that human experience is communicating, having partnership, having a group dynamic. Like,
you could be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't convey what you know, then you're useless.
Yeah. Like,
that was talked about in our engineering background, is you have to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. Like, Stephen Hawking had a lot of assistance with, like, AAC devices. That's what he had. It's augmentative and alternative communication. So.
And that's them looking at the board, being able to, like, it's tracking their eye movements so that they can pick words.
Yeah, that's what he had. He had it's technical term, Mr. Engineer. It's like a high-tech speech generative device that has, like, an eye gaze attachment. So wherever he would look, it would track, like, what he was meaning to say, type of thing. And I don't know if that's exactly what he used. I'm honestly 100% sure. I don't know if he had like motor movement to where he could type it out, or
I don't think so.
I don't know.
He had ALS.
Yeah. So like that's how.
Like he might have started out having some motor movement, but
Yeah, I think as it started to degenerate.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like how. Like imagine if he didn't have any communication assistance, like all the stuff, all that knowledge.
Yeah. I don't know.
Gonna be lost.
I don't know how he'd be able to keep track of all like all of the theories and like all of the like working out, coming to a conclusive answer in a mathematical sense, just by keeping it all in your head.
Yeah, but that's like one of the amazing parts, though.
Yeah.
Like, especially being in a field of like studying humans and how they work. Like I eat that stuff up because it's really interesting. Like how does he do that?
No,
that was insane.
That is pretty wild. Like you'd have to be very ahead of you'd have to be very well put together to be able to do that, in my opinion. Like most people, like working out like a math problem, I'm not keeping track of that in my head. I have a calculator that keeps track of my history.
Right, or you write it on a piece of paper to like keep track of all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said about whenever you can't do it, you force yourself to have to step up.
Yep.
To be able to compete with everyone else.
Yeah. There's this guy who, one of the things that speech pathologists address in our field is locked-in syndrome. And it's basically where you have a stroke and you're not able to move any part of your body except for maybe like your eyes. And that's quite literally it. Like you can't talk, you can't move your head, like it's literally just you're paralyzed fully and completely except for like your eyes. So this guy, his name was Jean Piaget, I think. He was a French guy and he had like this crazy life. Like he worked for a bunch of newspapers, he was a journalist, like his job was to investigate stuff, like he was a very accomplished person and he had a stroke very young. And when like AAC, like devices weren't a thing, he had a speech language pathologist that came into his hospital room every day. He was only able to move his right or his left eye, one of his eyes, like he got into some kind of accident or something, or when he had his stroke. It's not uncommon for people to lose sight or lose one of their eyes when they do have a stroke, because your blood vessels do all this crazy stuff inside your head. So he was only alive for like a year or two post-stroke, but he did not want to sit there and just be locked in his head, because that's what it is. Like you're just locked in with your thoughts, which is why they call it locked-in syndrome. It's absolutely terrifying. That is something I would never wish on my worst enemy personally. But his speech pathologist came in with a big like cardboard thing and it had like the whole alphabet on it. And he somehow expressed that he wanted to write a book. He couldn't even, like, you can't even write, like, obviously, because he's paralyzed. Like, even she'd put the pen in his hand and it would just be scribbles. Like, you can't communicate in any other way. But this speech language pathologist, it was really early, like, communication stuff like that. So she came in with this board with the alphabet on it. And he wrote this book out letter by letter using only one of his eyes. And she would, like, point to the letters on this board. And whenever he wanted one, he would blink. Like his eye. He wrote this whole book blinking. Like, it's not a super long book, but it literally took him like
that would be
year.
Wild.
It took him like a year and a half. Like he
screwed doing revisions.
Yeah. Like he passed away pretty shortly after the book was completed, but like he didn't want that to be his legacy of just like someone who had a stroke and couldn't do anything with their lives. Because most of the time when you have a communication issue, like when you're a kid, when you're an adult, whatever, you feel useless. Like you can't, I don't know, like you can't express your thoughts, you can't express your feelings, feel like you can't contribute to anything, you can't be connected to others. So he didn't want to be labeled as that. So he said like that I don't know, like that was the best part of every day, was being able to actually get his thoughts out and write that book. It gave him purpose. So, I don't know. That's honestly why I really enjoy my job. But
You give people purpose.
I give them the ability to communicate their purpose. So, because I think I would go crazy if I was not able to do that myself.
Yeah, I don't think I knew. I don't think I knew what a speech language pathologist was until I got to college.
Most people go a very long time because most people don't know it unless you need one. Like they don't know what that is until you have to have one. I don't know. We're just kind of sneaky. Like we just kind of float around because we're everywhere. Like we can be in schools, we can be in hospitals, we can be, I don't know, private practices, like institutions, universities. Like I don't know. We kind of just sneak in. Like, hey, heard you need me. Okay, I'll see you later. But
yeah, it's not talked about too often.
No, but I don't know. I like it. It's really fun. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about. So you said gave the example of continuing DEI, how they had like the $100 bill that they were competing for, and if you were like, if your parents were married, take a step forward. If you didn't have to help your parents with bills, take a step forward.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of people like obviously work to get their family ahead. So where I'm going with this is that like if you were to like cut off those people from like working to get ahead because everyone gets the same steps forward, well then wouldn't that like what would be the motivation to get ahead if everyone gets the same thing? I bring this up from like a cultural standpoint. Like if everyone gets the same pay, why would someone ever try to what would be the incentive to do more?
Like if everyone had the same amount of money.
If everyone, yeah, so in a workplace, we'll say sales, because that's very like input output. Like the more you input into meeting customers and trying to get a sale, the more you output. Well, what if it was just all baseline? Everyone gets $10 a paycheck. I know it's not a real paycheck, but why would someone go the extra step to get an extra sale if everyone makes $10? That's why those are commission based.
Yeah. For motivation.
Right. It's the incentive behind it.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out that like it's not always the like there needs to be motivation for people in order to try and get ahead. And so for someone to get ahead and then you got ahead, but we need to bring these other people up.
Yeah.
I know you're coming from a communication standpoint, and I think that is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
But from a standpoint of like a cultural sense of working hard to get ahead, that would suck. If you're putting in, double the time everyone else is, but
if you're the guy like at the very last
part of the line, you're the one keeping the company afloat, but everyone's getting paid the same.
Yeah,
that would suck.
If you're the guy at the very last part of the line and you're running the race, and then you get up to that finish line, and you realize everyone else is just there with the $100, and then you get handed the $100. It's like, well, I just got the same thing everyone else did, like, but I won, type of thing. Like working my ass off to get here, and then it turns out everyone else got the same thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out like that would be like what would the point be?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If that were the case.
Yeah.
And also, it just creates like if everyone gets the same like resources, obviously people have more resources starting out. Mm-hmm. It's like it just creates a very big like someone has to pay for those resources. Mm-hmm. So who does that?
Yeah.
And so like, well, be like, oh, well, the government should give these resources out. Well, how is the government going to give those resources out? So like the money's coming from somewhere. Like you're taking resources from someone else to allocate it to someone else. Like
how are you going to make equity a thing when it takes a lot of money, and where are you going to get that money from, type of thing? Because you don't want to take it to the people who, like, you don't want to take it from the people who were starting at the very back of the line, worked their ass off to get to the top, and then it's like, okay, well, why did I do all this hard work when I'm not going to be rewarded for it, type of thing. Like, what is the point? So, I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a huge issue that people are trying to figure out, though, because it is, like, it's a movement in America of, like, trying to care for everybody and trying to get everyone the help that they need. Mm-hmm. But it's, like, the people who've worked their asses off to get to a high point, they want to keep their success. Like, they want to keep their money. It's like, why should I? Type of thing. A lot of people are asking that question.
And I think it should be on a, like, community basis. Like, I don't think it should be in a broad sense, like, all right, so taxes are meant to help, pay for schools, pay for roads.
Yeah.
Well, in a large sense, well, like, what roads do we pay for? Well, let's pay for the roads that are closest to me. Mm-hmm. Well, what about the roads that most people, like, the majority of people don't use? But what about the people that are in that area? They don't have nice roads.
Yeah.
Like, let's pay for the roads in the city.
Yeah.
But most of the roads are elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
In a rural area. So, I think if it were more localized, like, hey, we need to fix our road. Who is willing? Like, I think it should be more donation based. Mm-hmm. That still poses the concern of, well, who's going to donate? And it may still come down to, well, if everyone chips in $30, we can pay for a new road.
Yeah. But you're saying, like, it would be nice to just see, for the people who have that success, for the people who worked their ass off, seeing your money actually have an impact feels more meaningful than just throwing it to something that you're never going to see.
I think it should be community based, like, more localized, like, going on with the road example, like a local government paying for what roads need addressed, instead of it being instead of a state government deciding that. Like, you get X amount of dollars to allocate, and, like, I don't know, I just feel like that would be a better way of doing it. And I feel like, also, to add to this, government doesn't spend their money as effectively. Like, there's been studies to show that private businesses allocate their resources more efficiently. And so,
because they have that stake, like, they know whose money it is and where it's going.
Because, well, it dictates, their profits. It dictates what they can do with it. So obviously you want to be efficient with it. Where the government, they get money regardless. Yeah. They're taking, like, they're going to take regardless. So they don't need to be efficient.
I think that's, not to wrap it back to communication stuff, but, like, knowing who you're impacting, like, having that connection of, like, if you are a government leader, okay, like, this is all the money I get, and I know that these people are going to get it, I think that's a way higher motivator than just, okay, here's this sum of money. Do what you want.
Yeah.
I don't know. And like, so private businesses who have those connections in their community of like, this is the money I've been given. These are the people who are counting on me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know I have to do something with this that's meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
because if I don't, these people are going to let me know. I think there's a disconnect of like, from government officials to their actual, like, who they're helping spread that money to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the problem. It's like everybody wants them, like everybody wants to be seen, period. But when you're throwing your money, when you're giving your money to something and then you don't see where it's going, I think that causes a lot of fear. I think that causes a lot of like, well, why am I doing this? Like, people are questioning it. And there's just a disconnect of like, does this person actually care about where my money is going? Like, why should I be giving it to them?
Yeah.
So,
And
I
so,
don't know.
so whenever I was a kid, I had an uncle who would, like, every year he would have like a very big barbecue, and it was like, you know, you barbecue for free, you know, everyone's gonna vote on your barbecue, but while we're here, like, you're barbecuing for tips, so that way we can donate it to the fire department, or you know, Kelly has cancer, Kelly needs help with paying cancer bills.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like that should be normalized as opposed to, well, you know, 20% of my income is going to go to this.
Yeah.
And I feel like people would be more compelled to give whenever they saw the cause.
It'd be more meaningful. Of like,
It would be.
Yeah, okay, it's 20% of my income, but I know it's going to.
And I think it would just build. It would actually build a community as opposed to, it's like, well, these are the people around me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like we bring people together.
Yeah.
I think that should be normalized, but it's difficult because
Yeah.
now people have to get out of their comfort zone to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I think that would build better people than just taking it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone who's just someone you're never gonna meet, someone you don't know, is just taking it instead of, oh, well, if I give 20% of my income, I see that road get fixed, like, in my area, or like I see that hospital get improved that I might need to go to, type of thing. Yeah.
I think that's how it should be.
Yeah. So.
Real quick, can we take a break so I can get more coffee?
Yeah.
We're going.
Live?
We're back in it.
Back from our break?
Back from our break.
Ready to go. Okay.
What do you want to get into?
What kind of communication would you say is like emphasized in your workplace, like to be utilized, but then what's the actual way that you guys communicate with each other?
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, like.
Could you give me an example?
Yes. So, say you guys, like, you originally got hired for the job, and your boss is like, oh no, like, we're all very clear with each other. It's very like we want to know what you're doing on everything. Like, everybody wants to hear what's happening. Like, we all want to contribute to, like, everybody else's work to make sure the whole, like, the wheels run well. It's a well-oiled machine and stuff. So, like, if that was your original impression of how communication was set up in your workplace, what does it actually look like? Or what's been your experience with, like, the engineering field of, like, what communication is talked about to be, but then, like, the actual result?
Okay, to be clear, like, I'm not, like, I have an engineering degree, like, I'm not,
Right.
I don't really do engineering work.
Yeah, okay.
But, like, okay, so I'm in project management. You know that.
Yeah.
And it's, so the communication I'd say the communication that I was expecting, or like they were presenting that they expected, is probably pretty on like as they explained, is what would be expected.
Mm.
So, like from a project management sense, like as much communication as possible, like probably over communicate what you're needing, so that way, like it probably will get annoying to the sense of how many times you've said what you need, but it gets, the message is like relayed, and what you're needing gets done. So I think what the company I work for now presented is very accurate for what's expected. It's just really difficult because there's a lot of shit going on all the time.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously things get missed. That's just, mistakes are gonna happen.
Right.
It's part of it.
We're humans.
And like prioritizing like communication over, like, I don't know, getting your contract in. It's like, I need this contract in. You know, it's hard to, like, there's a lot of tasks that need done, and so making sure that communication's on point is hard to do, but I think it should be done. I think they're right. Like, the communication that's like whatever the crew needs to do the job, I think is what's needed. It's just sometimes things get missed, so it's hard to meet that standard. But I think that's how it should be. What were you expecting? Like, what were you coming from this?
I just think it's, how am I gonna say this? I think it's interesting the way that people talk about communication in a workplace, and then like how that is actually like lived up to, or how that's fulfilled type of thing. And
I'd say in a general sense, like a lot of people want to come off as, oh yes, we're all very clear in what we do, and we always do this.
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's not how it normally works.
Yeah.
So, I think my company does a really good job with it.
Yeah.
But
you think the communication style is like pretty effective then?
The communication style.
Like of the communicating everything, like to as many people as you can. Is that like effective to get your tasks and like your job done?
It's just a hard job. So there's a lot that needs done all the time.
Yeah.
And so like making sure everyone has what they need all the time, it's very hard to do. And so like, is that style effective?
Third time's a charm?
Yeah, GoPro died. We're back though. Yes, so we were talking about what, speaking capability, not speaking capability, communication in the workplace. Yeah, like in short, I'd say like it's hard, but I think it's necessary to communicate what you need. And I think it's necessary. In a general sense, I feel like most people don't communicate what they need, or aren't specific enough on what they need.
Good.
Yeah, so in short, what about, like, I know you're still in school, so like teachers being able to communicate what they need is kind of key to assignments, like very transactional. You submit this, we grade this. So do you want to touch on that?
I think grad school it's tough because I do have a degree. Like, I went through my undergraduate time, so like I have a lot of knowledge, but grad school for speech for SLPs is basically like glorified job training. but I'm seeing and treating clients. So it's a weird, like, 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing. Like, my foot's in treatment, and one of the things in my field is when we handle how to treat somebody, when we give someone a diagnosis and when we decide how we're going to address or target what they need to change or what can be improved upon. Part of it is like best clinical judgment. So it's like using my experience to like make a call of what we're gonna do. But it's still not my call. Like, I feel like I have a lot of tools to do that, and it's only my first semester, so I know I'm not perfect. I know I don't have all the experience in the world to make the best decision, but sometimes it is hard having a supervisor look over your shoulder 24/7 of like I'm with my client twice a week for 50-minute sessions, so I get a lot of one-on-one time to be in their head, to like think about the best way to address them. And my supervisors in any school setting, schools are understaffed. Like, they're not paid enough. It's adjunct professors, it's real professors, all just thrown in, and they're all doing their best to do this job, which is also very difficult. So they only see like 10 minutes a week or twice a week of me like working with my client. So it's hard sometimes when you don't agree with your supervisor on like a treatment plan type of thing, because it's, well, I feel like I know my client pretty well, but if the supervisor has a different opinion, it's having open communication is pretty important, because if you don't agree, like, how do you appropriately address that to your superior but still hold up that you're like a semi-practicing clinician? Because I am the clinician like on all of our documentation notes. Like, I have to sign my name as the clinician with a bachelor's degree. So like there's but there is responsibility on me for treating that person. So I don't know, it can get difficult sometimes.
That's why SLPs make the big bucks.
It's kind of a little bit. One day, yeah, one of these days. But yeah, I don't know, it's tough because I'm just ready to be in the workforce. Like, I really enjoy working with my clients and I want to do it full time, but I still have to go through my school stuff. Like, I still have to turn in assignments. I still have to answer to a supervisor, which is going to be the rest of my career. Like, there's always going to be someone higher than you that you have to listen to. But
then you'd be making money.
Yeah. So
that's the fun part.
And it's definitely more autonomy too. Like, I get more of a say with my clients. Like, when it's.
Would you say that's the biggest difference between undergraduate and graduate?
I'd say the biggest difference is just actual hands-on interaction, like application of knowledge. Because undergrad, it was, okay, like, watch these observation videos and tell me what you think the clinician did good. Tell me what you think they did bad. It's like, well, that lady said this one thing during the session. She shouldn't have said that. Like, that was weird. But now it's, okay, watch your observation video. Like, this is the knowledge I've given you. And now it's not just like on a test. Like, you see what you've learned and you see what you do and you see the impact it has on the people that you're treating. I would say that that's probably the biggest difference. So, but I like that part though, because I mean, all we've ever done is just tests and homework and watching videos. So I like it better when I can get my hands dirty.
If you wanted to relay one point that you've learned that you desperately need people to know through speech pathology, what would it be? Like, what do you think would be the most valuable thing for people to know coming from a future speech pathologist?
I think a really good point that a conclusion that I came to this week is treat and teach based off of potential not like face value for your like face value of your client. Like if someone has a pretty severe communication deficit, or you know, it looks really bleak, or it's someone who would be associated to not have a high IQ, someone who doesn't seem like they're going to go very far, like don't put them in that category. Like watch what they do, give them opportunities to show you that they can do more with communication. Like don't limit people based on what you think they're able to do. Like give them range of, okay, here's something easy to do. Did they do well on that? Here's something hard. Like did they meet the challenge, and can I push them further? So, because I think a lot of, I don't know, I've just observed that, and people do this all the time, we put people in categories, right? It's like, oh, this person looks like this, so they're only going to be able to achieve this. Or like, oh, this person has this ability now, it doesn't look like they're going to ever meet anything higher. Like, it drives me nuts when I see coworkers or, I don't know, people like have their kid at one spot, and they're like, oh, well, they're never really going to get higher just because of, I don't know, their diagnosis and stuff like that. Like, give people the opportunity to like prove you wrong, and that like they can do more. So
give them the opportunity to fail.
Yeah, like treat based off of potential, not just like whatever is going on currently. Like give them the opportunity to fail, give yourself the opportunity to be wrong. Like I think people are so afraid to be wrong when you treat somebody, when you're doing a job. Like it's really scary to get stuff wrong. It's really scary to be proved wrong when you had an idea going in. But I think that's when you get your best learning done, is when you fail. So
yeah. And it's really not failing whenever you learn from it.
No,
it's only failing if you don't.
Right. So I learned a valuable lesson with that this week. So
no, I think that's really good. I think that's a good like overall point as well. It's like you should be like trying to find that limit of your capability. You should be like failing and be like, okay, what went wrong here? Address that. Now you can go further.
Right. Just like adjust, flexibility, and
like, so whenever I was in engineering school, we had to build a project, and I had a lot of friends who weren't very hands-on. Nothing wrong with that. They excelled in other areas, but whenever I was hands-on, and they would say, how do we build this? And I would just tell them a lot of it's just me guessing and then making adjustments afterwards. So just try it and see what happens. I know that's not engineering.
Yeah.
But that is building.
Yeah.
Like that is a part of any skill, isn't it? You know, I think this is what's going to happen, and you try it. It's like, oh, I was wrong.
Yeah. Make
adjustments. I think that's how it should be. I don't think anyone should expect to have it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I think that's how it needs to be. Is you just make adjustments as you go. And I feel like that's at least benefited me in any skill.
Yeah.
Not being so concerned with it being right the first time. Just being concerned that being aware that I'm going to make adjustments as I go, and that I think I'm capable of learning.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well,
I like it.
You want to cover anything else, or you want to call it?
I feel like we kind of covered it.
I think we covered it.
Yeah.
We'll call it.
Cheers.
That's it.
Like it.